We're on Chapter 7, The Dream. There were swirls of fog, like steam off the water in the icelands. Thick fog, heavy fog, that would start to clear and close again, then clear a little more, until finally he could see. A skin shelter, a tent on the side of the ocean. Inside there was an oil lamp, much like the one Ugruk had, burning a smoky yellow that lighted the faces of the people in the tent. Two children were there, small and round and wonderfully fat. They were eating of some fat red meat that Russell could not understand, didn't know, but knew was being important. He wanted to know what kind of meat they were eating because it was so red and had coarse texture and rich yellow fat all over the children's faces and in their hair. The grease shone, and they were happy with it. On the other side of the lamp sat a woman, young and round and shining beautiful. She was fat and had eaten of the meat, but was done now and worked at tending the lamp. There was much honor in tending the lamp, and she took pride in it. The flame was even if smoky, and in the stone lamp bowl there was the same yellow fat that was so important for him to name. One other person was in the skin tent, and he couldn't see who it was. It was a man, but he kept back in the shadows and would not come forward. They were saying nothing, but the children laughed until laughter was like a kind of music in the background, and the woman looked at the man and smiled often. It was the kind of smile all men look for in women, the kind that reaches inside, and Russell felt warm to see it. But he could not see the man, and he did not know the meat, and they were important to him. The fog came again, and this time, when it cleared, the man was standing near the doorway in a parka. The parka was deerskin, and he held a long spear with some form of black stone point, chipped black stone that was deep and shining dark. He was going out hunting, and Russell sensed that he was going to hunt whatever he had made the coarse meat and yellow fat, and Russell wanted to go with him. The woman kept smiling, and the children kept laughing, but the woman was worried and said something in a language that Russell could not understand. It was words, and they were similar to what he knew, but enough different so that it didn't quite make sense to him. As the man turned to leave the hut, the woman said something to him, and he stopped and looked at her. Her eyes glowed at him, and there was much fear in them, so much that Russell was afraid. And he knew that there was some fear in the man too, but hidden. Russell would not have known that except that he felt close to the man, more than close somehow. The man left the tent and went out to harness dogs, and they were already in harness, waiting for him. And they were dogs, but they were more than dogs too, great gray sides twitching. They stood like shadows with wide heads and heavy triangular jaws. Russell had never seen anything like the dogs in the dream. They were higher than the man's waist and had silent yellow eyes that watched everything the man did while he put his gear in the sled and got ready to leave. And the way they watched it was clear that they could either run or turn and eat him. It was up to the man. He stood to the sled, and Russell saw then that it was not of wood, but all of bone and ivory, with large rib bones for the runners, and lashed with yellow rawhide. It shone yellow-white and rich in the night light, the color deep and alive. And when the man stepped on the runners, the dogs lunged silently, but with great speed and power, and the fog closed again, swirled and thick and deep. When it lifted, the man was alone out on the sweeps. The stretch of land looked familiar, but there was something different in the dream, and after a time Russell could see that it was the grass. Where the snow had been blown away, the grass was taller and thinner, with pointed ends. It was bent over in wind, but not twisted like the tundra grass. There was deeper darkness now, and Russell watched as the man worked the dogs without making a sound. They were clearly hunting something, that much was sure. But what they were hunting, Russell couldn't tell. He was amazed to see the man handle the dogs with no audible commands. They ran to his mind, clean and simple. They went out into the sweeps, and Russell watched it as if, from somewhere above, watched as they hunted in and out of the fog until finally in a clearing they found the fresh tracks of whatever they were hunting. The gray dogs put their hair up and ran to the tracks nervously. They watched to catch the smell, but they didn't want us to as well. They were still running to the man's mind, and he made them follow the tracks, but there was fear now, great fear. The tracks were blurred but huge, and Russell couldn't see what might have made them. He had never seen tracks like them, nor felt the fear that was in the man. Then there was a shape before him, and Russell fought to see it. Some great thing it was, some great shape in the fog, and then the mist was whirled away in a rush of wind, and Russell saw two things clearly. The animal was a woolly mammoth, immense. It stood with shaggy hair, its giant domed head swaying, its giant tusks curved toward the dogs. The small trunk whipped back and forth in anger, and the red eyes tore through the fog like a demon's from the below world. The man was to kill the beast if he could, or the beast was to kill the man and the dogs, drive them into the snow, and kill them. That much Russell saw clearly, and one more thing. As the man grabbed the long killing lance and jumped from the ivory and bone sled, the wind blew off his parka hood, and Russell saw the man's face and knew it. The man was him, Russell, with more hair, longer hair, and a small beard and mustache. But he was Russell, and Russell knew fear, deep fear, because with the knowledge that he was the man in the dream, he knew that he would have to fight the mammoth. He would have to fight it and kill it. And the mammoth charged. The head and tusks thrashed in angry arcs, and the huge feet trampled the earth, tearing up clods of dirty snow as the mighty animal bore down on the man and the dog and the sled. There was no time for escape, no time for dodging. The man had to face the beast. The dogs ran to the side, but turned back as the mammoth rushed by them, heading for the man. But their action caused the animal to swing its head slightly to the side, and that revealed the center of the chest. Crouching and turned away, the man set the shaft and the long lance in the earth and snow in back of him, settled in as hard as he could, and rose to face the oncoming mammoth. With its head sideways to lash at the dogs, it roared down on the man as with small arm movements he guided the point of the lance into the center of the chest and let the weight of the animal carry it down the shaft to death. The lance entered like light, like a beam of light shot into the mammoth, and when there should have been death, the animal instead wheeled and heaved in a great circle, caught the dogs, and threw two of them in the air, all in silence. And then the beast stopped. It stood with its head hanging, swaying back and forth, and accepted the death from the broken lance shaft in its chest, and went down on its front knees, and then its back, and in an almost gentle roll slipped to its side and died. And the man who saw the animal falter began to sing. Again, Russell did not know the words, but they sounded familiar to him. The man sang in exultation, sang the death of the great beast and the mountain of meat lying before him, sang the luck of his hunt, sang of the fat that would be of his for his family, and the dogs that now tore at the belly of the mammoth, sang the wind that brought his dogs to the tracks, and sang the gratitude for the great animal who died and left him much meat. And Russell felt all those songs inside his soul, felt them even as the man in the dream sang, and the fog came again to hide him, and the dogs and the mammoth. Russell knew it all because he knew them all. He was the man, and he was the dream. He was the fog.